The kingdom of Avalora was a land of prosperity, known for its golden fields, flourishing cities, and people who lived in harmony under the wise and just rule of Queen Lysandra. From the moment she ascended the throne, she dedicated herself to her people, ensuring fairness in law, balance in trade, and protection from war. She believed that a ruler was not a master, but a servant of the people. Despite her position of power, she was never distant from her subjects. She would walk through the streets, listen to the concerns of farmers, artisans, and scholars, and seek counsel from the wisest minds. Under her reign, Avalora thrived like never before. But within the grand palace, envy lurked in the shadows. Her younger sister, Princess Selene, had grown up watching Lysandra rule with grace and wisdom. While the people adored the queen, they barely spoke of Selene, and when they did, it was only to compare her to her sister. Selene was beautiful, intelligent, and cunning, but none of that seemed to matter in the face of Lysandra's genuine kindness. The resentment festered in Selene's heart. She did not want to be the queen who merely smiled and listened. She wanted to be the queen who ruled with strength, who was feared as much as she was respected. And so, in the dark corridors of the palace, she began to plot. One night, under the guise of a royal feast, Selene gathered the most ambitious and power-hungry nobles. She whispered promises of wealth and influence to those willing to support her. She won over corrupt generals who longed for conquest and merchants who wished to see the queen's laws on fair trade abolished so they could hoard riches for themselves. A plan was set in motion. On the eve of the harvest festival, when the city was alive with celebration, Selene struck. While the people danced in the streets, Selene's loyal guards stormed the palace. Lysandra, caught off guard, had no time to rally her forces. One by one, her most trusted advisors were arrested or executed. Selene found her sister in the throne room. The Great Hall, once a place of justice, now echoed with the sounds of betrayal. Selene. Lysandra's voice was calm despite the chaos around her. Why? Selene stepped forward, her gown shimmering like a serpent's scales. Because I will not spend my life in your shadow. Dear sister, Avalora deserves a queen who rules with strength, not softness. Lysandra held her head high. Strength is not cruelty. Selene, the people will not follow a queen who rules through fear. Selene only smiled. Then I shall make them fear me, instead of ordering her execution. Selene chose to exile Lysandra, believing that watching her sister suffer in obscurity would be a far greater punishment. Lysandra was stripped of her royal robes and taken to the edge of the kingdom. The last words she heard before being cast out were Selene's chilling whisper, "This is my kingdom now." For the first time in her life, Lysandra was alone. Gone were the days of silk dresses and golden crowns. Now, she had only a simple cloak, tattered shoes, and the uncertain road ahead. At first, she despaired. She had lived in luxury since birth. How could she survive among common folk? But as the days passed, she began to understand the struggles of the people in a way she never had before. She worked in the fields with farmers, hands blistered from the plow. She learned the craft of a blacksmith, shaping metal with sweat and fire. She sat beside mothers who had lost their children to Selene's ruthless taxes and listened to merchants who could no longer afford to trade under the new queen's tyranny. In time, she found refuge in a small village on the outskirts of the kingdom. There, she took a new name, Mira, hiding her true identity. The villagers welcomed her as one of their own, unaware that the woman who slept in their barns and worked in their fields was once their queen. As the years passed, the kingdom fell into despair under Selene's rule. The taxes became unbearable. The people starved while the palace feasted. Justice was no longer blind. It served only those with wealth and power. The once thriving Avalora became a land of suffering, and whispers of rebellion spread like wildfire. And among the people, a legend grew. The true queen is still among us, She walks with the people, and one day, she will return. One fateful night, as Lysandra sat by the village fire, an old man approached her. "My lady," he said, his voice low, "do you think we do not know who you are?" Lysandra stiffened, but the old man simply smiled. "We have known for a long time, but we did not speak your name, because we wanted you to stay." He placed a hand over hers. "But now, Avalora needs you, my queen." Lysandra looked around, seeing the faces of those who had become her family, men and women who had suffered for too long. She realized that her exile had not been a curse, it had been a lesson. She had learned what it truly meant to rule, and she was ready to take back her throne, with farmers, merchants, and blacksmiths as her soldiers. She marched toward the capital. As they moved through villages, more people joined. By the time she reached the city gates, her army had grown into thousands. Selene, arrogant in her power, laughed at the sight. "A rabble of peasants?" she scoffed. "Is this Lysandra's grand return?" But the royal guards, who had once served Lysandra, saw their true queen standing before them. One by one, they turned against Selene. The battle was swift. The people of Avalora, fueled by years of oppression, overpowered Selene's forces. The palace, once a symbol of tyranny, was reclaimed by its rightful ruler. Selene was dragged before Lysandra, fear in her eyes. "Do you seek revenge, dear sister?" Selene asked, her voice trembling. Lysandra gazed at her for a long moment before speaking. "No," she said softly. "I seek justice." Instead of executing Selene, Lysandra chose exile, the same fate she had endured. "I have seen what suffering does to a person," Lysandra said. "Perhaps, in exile, you will learn what it truly means to rule." Lysandra did not return to the throne as she once was. She no longer ruled from a gilded palace. She ruled from the streets, from the fields, from the hearts of the people. She had walked among them, suffered with them, learned from them. And because of that, Avalora entered a new golden age, one built not just on laws and power, but on true understanding. Justice may falter, but it never truly perishes. A ruler is not great because they sit upon a throne, but because they walk among their people.